CNN-IBN special. The Assisted Reproductive Technology Regulation Bill is likely to be introduced in the winter session of Parliament. This bill aims to regulate assisted reproduction like surrogacy and IVF. If passed, the bill could actually shut doors on foreign nationals from having surrogate babies here in India. Meenakshi Upriti has that exclusive.
After an Australian couple recently abandoned one of their twins born from an Indian surrogate mother, the Health Ministry is moving fast to regulate the booming surrogacy business in the country. A new law will be introduced in the winter session of the Parliament, which could shut doors to foreign nationals from surrogate children in India.
We have described that what should be the minimum infrastructure facility in this clinic. So she should be appropriately insured till she is declared completely healthy. So that part has also been addressed.
CNN-IBN has accessed details of the proposed bill and learns that foreign nationals will be barred from using Indian nationals as surrogate mothers. The bill will make it mandatory for couples to take custody of even abnormal children born through surrogacy. Single parents will be allowed to have children through surrogates with clauses. The bill will also have provisions for health insurance of surrogates and ensure regular tests for them, though sources in the ministry say that contentious issues have been left to the discretion of the cabinet.
Some of the regulations may go some way to safeguarding some women, but I think really the question is that pregnancy involves risks.
The bill will also regulate in vitro fertilization clinics, making them mandatory to be registered and have proper infrastructure.
ICMR regulating it and registered clinics being allowed is a very good move.
This bill will not only make it mandatory for couples to sign a legal agreement with the donor, but also give full rights of a legitimate child to the surrogate baby. Had this bill already been in place, the Australian couple would not have been able to abandon their surrogate child. But the big question is, will this bill see the light of the day in the upcoming session of the Parliament? With Vijay Amitpal Gill in New Delhi, Meenakshi Upriti.
Okay, let's push this further. Joining us here on India at 9 is Hari G. Ramasubramaniam. He's the Chief Consultant, Indian Surrogacy Law Centre, joining us from Chennai. Good evening, Hari. Thanks very much for joining us here on India at 9.
It's my pleasure.
As we heard from that story, the Cabinet is yet to deliberate on some of these clauses that we've put out here on the channel. But if this proposal of banning foreign nationals from accessing surrogate mothers here in India was to actually go ahead, what would your reaction be? Would you see this as a large setback for the global community, considering just a handful of nations allow commercial surrogacy?
Certainly it is so. As far as the global scenario is concerned, India is the biggest medical service provider as far as surrogacy is concerned. So apart from India, we have US, which has very little surrogacy arrangements. Although US has been a pioneer with regard to surrogacy arrangements, India is presently the global leader as far as surrogacy agreements are concerned and surrogacy arrangements are concerned. The reason for this is that US offers surrogacy at a very high cost, which globally not many are able to access. And even a lot of internet parents from US, they come down to India for taking up surrogacy arrangements. So it is going to be a big problem for childless couples from all over the world if India is going to take a stern view against them.
The flip side to that story is that India has almost become a market, a booming business for surrogacy in a sense. But what do you believe has been the thinking within the government and people who are looking at this law to actually call for a ban on foreign nationals accessing surrogate mothers?
No, I seriously don't consider this to be a right approach. It actually shows the inability to come forward with something trustworthy. There is no logical distinction between an Indian national and a foreign national as far as surrogacy arrangement is concerned. What is most required is that both of them are kept in the same parlance, and we have an international intervention. Like, for example, we have the Hague Conventions studying about surrogacy arrangements. A very similar approach with regard to surrogacy arrangements, when we can bring in treaties with different nations, could be the most possible solution. But of course, we have the problem with that most countries don't allow surrogacy arrangements. They consider commercial surrogacy arrangements to be illegal.
True.
But India has got a progressive view, and that I think should be taken forward.
You know, Hari, recently a case came out where an Australian couple abandoned one of the babies. They had two through a surrogacy. It was well known in a sense. How did something like this actually slip through?
That's a very curious case. But the actual issue is that it has been, what has been done by them is already illegal. We don't need a new law for that. It is already illegal. Even as per section 319 of the Indian Penal Code, whatever has been done by the Australian couple by abandoning one of the child born to them, one of the twins born to them in India is illegal. And but surprisingly, it has not come forward at all till it's happened in 2012. For about 2 years, it has not come to light. And even now we hear about it only through an external channel, through a judge speaking at Australia at a conference happening there. Only then we come to learn about it. Even though sources in India had knowledge about it, there has been a very clear network which has been able to suppress this.
True. So such as
I'm not sure how many cases.
Okay. So such as the network and such as sort of the veil of secrecy that surrounds surrogacy. You know, which brings me to the question is that the fact is all these years surrogacy really has worked without any guidelines, without any law, and obviously it's a sector that needs regulation in the light of incidents like this one. You know, most surrogacy agreements are completely secretive. They are agreements between the surrogate mothers and the couples who actually come in here to take the child. But what do you believe any legislation should contain if it has to make sure that the interests of the surrogate mother and the child as well, in case he or she is born with an abnormality, are protected?
The first thing I would think forward is like the surrogate mother should be able to act independently and communicate directly with the intended parents. Hospitals, medical service providers, and you know, any possible middlemen like, you know, agents or somebody who brings forward with the you know, comes forward with a surrogate mother, introduces them, and actually takes care of the business between the intended parent and the surrogate mother. This kind of a transaction should be totally removed. It should be made illegal. The surrogate mother should be able to act on her own, possibly with her own lawyer, and bring forward her points of view to the agreement. Now, there is no doubt that the surrogacy agreement has to be secretive in many of the cases. It can be secretive or it can be open depending upon the choice of the parties. But that cannot, that is singularly not the issue involved. The single issue involved is that if the middlemen are taken off the stage, then we have a very, very transparent relationship between the surrogate mother and the intended parents, whereby they'll be able to interact with themselves in a straightforward manner. That is one thing. And next thing would be replace or come forward with, you know, art banks which have very ethical means of working, whereby art banks would be able to identify the right kind of people who would be able to be surrogate mothers or egg donors. At the same time, you know, help you know, the intended parents to directly interact with the surrogate mother. For example, the way it is happening in most of the places is that there is a fixed fee which is fixed by the middlemen, and based on that, the surrogate mothers would either be required to agree to it or, you know, disagree to it.
Hari, I'll have to make you pause there because this obviously enlarges the scope of exploitation of surrogate mothers. But I think you've made very, very important points, and some of the details that we have put out are really proposals that will go before the cabinet, before they sign on it, and it comes up before the winter session of Parliament. We'll have to stop at this here, but thanks very much for joining us here on India at 9. Some of the proposals for a new surrogacy bill that the cabinet could be looking at.